into those, and we'll start with authenticity. So in the context of what I'm talking about, and just to define it, I have a feeling that all of you know what I'm talking about, but when I refer to workplace drama, it could be anything as minor as, you know, two coworkers who simply are having a squabble, a dispute, some conflict, and just don't know how to deal with it. It might spill over into more than just the two of them, all the way to somebody who ends up suing the company for some level of a drama that becomes, you know, labeled as either harassment, discrimination, retaliation. What I find is that most of the drama I deal with and that I dealt with in the workplace was somewhere in between. It was people thinking that somebody was disrespectful, belittling, bullying towards them, treated them in a way that made them feel excluded, perhaps. And then certainly I had my fair share of investigations where there were allegations that the behavior rose to something a little bit more than just, you know, I object to the behavior, it's rude or condescending. In some cases, hey, we've got a policy and the policy says that we shouldn't behave this way. And then, of course, in the worst cases, people were saying, my boss or my coworker sexually harassed me or harassed me based on some other category. So I'm talking about the entire universe of the type of drama that goes on in the workplace. And in terms of authenticity, this is, you know, when people ask me about my book, I really do say to them that if I have to boil it down to one word, that really, really is what kills workplace culture and what gives rise to workplace drama more than any other characteristic, in my view, and especially based on my experience, is a lack of authenticity. Saying one thing but really meaning another. Talking the talk but not walking the walk. So doing all these things in relation to them. And I have a couple of examples there as we delve through them. There's tons of them, but I just chose 3 to focus on to begin with. So one is, and I chose, you know, the Glassdoor reviews. It could be anywhere. It could be a statement made by the head of your PR director, you know, post some crisis that has come, an ethics lapse allegation or a lawsuit or anything like that. But just to keep it to Glassdoor, here's what I see over and over. I sometimes will just pop into Glassdoor just to sort of take a look to see what's going on. And how often are there positive reviews on Glassdoor? Almost never, right? It's always drama. It's always, you know, here's the drama that I was exposed to at this company. Beware, don't go there because of X, Y, or Z. And in too many cases, in fact, in almost every single one, I see what appears to me to be a cut and paste response from the company. It goes something like, these allegations are taken extremely seriously. Our policy is to conduct an investigation that will fully and fairly uncover all of the facts necessary so that we can take appropriate remedial action. Rest assured that we will do that. Sound familiar? Now, those words are fine when you parse them, but do you mean them? Especially when you have a cut and paste function, and that's what you say to every single one? You know, instead of, I'm really sorry to hear that this was your experience. I am incredibly curious and committed to making sure that I find out what happened in this particular situation, and that we'll take actions that are specific to whatever it is that we find. I just made that up off the top of my head, but something like that, just even in the words that you use, are so much more genuine. So this response, this rote response that really just makes you sound like a mediocre organization that resolves rote issues with rote responses. So that's one way in which I see the lack of authenticity. And here's what's happening. Something that for any of you, you know, who have, even if you're not necessarily in HR or anything related to employee relations, who do you think finds out about things first, employees or leaders? Employees know everything. And so all of these messages that we send out that are these rote responses, employees read them and they know what they mean. Oh, response number 3A, I know that one. So the message that's being sent out both internally and externally is, we say that we care about workplace culture, we say that a healthy, inclusive, equitable culture is important to us, but not really. So that's one example. Another example are in your policies. So I bet you that I could open up any of your harassment prevention policies and probably recite it to you word for word. Now, in fairness, and are there any attorneys in the room? I always like to apologize ahead of time. Since I'm an attorney, I feel I can do it. I'm going to talk a little smack about us, because sometimes we are not the best examples in terms of putting this out. So in fairness, most of the handbooks that I've seen, most of the policies that I've seen, especially related to things like harassment prevention, can date back to 20 years ago. They're sort of cut and paste. It's something that an attorney has reviewed and said to you, as long as every other sentence says at will, if you're in an at-will state. And none of these things are to say that these are wrong. It's just that it smacks of a lack of authenticity. If, for example, 25 times in your handbook you say, we take this policy very seriously. A violation of this policy will make you subject to discipline up to and including termination. We can all recite it to the point where it doesn't mean anything anymore. So one of the things that I suggest, I have an entire, the last part of my book is all DIY, and I have an entire chapter on what about if we take a fresh approach to policies, look at them and actually write them with the intent in mind, not just to have something that we know nobody will read. So policies is another way in which I see this lack of authenticity. And then I see, unfortunately, probably in all the areas that I cover in my book and that I've covered in my professional life, is a lack of authenticity when it comes to issues related to bias, diversity, inclusion, belonging, equity, the whole alphabet soup of those issues that we're all grappling with. And that is essentially a company that says, oh yeah, we're totally committed to diversity. That's like one of our #1 goals, but we're only gonna hire people who look like us. Because really, you go and look at their executive leadership page, you look at what their hiring processes are, and there really is. Or they do have some processes in place, but they're just window dressing. And one of the things that to me is really, really important in terms of authenticity in this area, in fact, it's my favorite interaction with my editor. So my editor was the most kind-hearted woman on the face of the earth. She would, write me back or call me and would say, not really, that chapter, no, like she was really kind about it. But the one, compliment that she gave me that really, really resonated